Okay, so when we hire a cleaning lady and she comes to the house and needs to clean the house, you can't stay home with her because you have things to do. You need to the woman of the house has to go shopping, has to go to work, has to pick up the kids, has to bring the kids back, whatever it is. You're not staying home with the cleaning lady. The problem is you're living in the house, meat, chicken, fish, cheese, whatever you want, you just name it. It's called basar shenitalem min ha'ain. Anything that's asur midoraita, especially. The machloket how to learn it. It's not for now. But anything that's asur, then there's a isur to leave that over there with her because she might change it. That's called basar shenitalem min ha'ain. Can you leave her in the house? Now, it says also in the halacha, in ק"ח, יש להחמיר שלא להניח הקדרות אצל השפחות כשאין ישראל בבית. You're not allowed to leave your utensils in the house and leave the house. Why is that? Because she might get hungry and she wants to cook herself something to eat. So what would she eat? Maybe she has something in her bag that's not kosher. She has pork in there. She'll put it in your pot and she'll cook it. What's the problem? Nope, she doesn't even know she's not supposed to do that. Secondly, even let's say she didn't bring anything with her. You told her, don't bring anything that's not kosher here. Don't bring any food. I'll provide you lunch and dinner and whatever you want. But when the wife leaves the house, she feels a little bit hungry. She'll take a piece of egg. She'll take an egg from the fridge and put it in the pot and boil it. It takes 2 minutes. It's ready to eat and all good. The problem is that's called bishul akum. Even an egg, the Gemara is talking about an egg, it's bishul akum. It's a cooking of a goy that Chachamim restricted, they prohibited, and they said that you're not allowed to eat. So she's eating the egg, not you. What's the problem? The problem is that the kli that she cooked in becomes kli asur. The pot itself becomes asur. But Moshe therefore screams not to do such a thing, not to leave the house with the cleaning lady. Even if the kids are home, he says that she might even cook for the kids, not for her. She might cook for the kids, which is even double problem because she's feeding the kids. Now it's not only the kli, the food itself is bishul akum, really problematic. So that is what the Shulchan Aruch says. יש להחמיר שלא להניח הקדרות אצל השפחות כשאין ישראל בבית. Oh, so we'll talk about all that. 1 minute. So over here, the question is, when you have a cleaning lady, her job is not to cook. Her job is to clean. Rav Moshe says, even if she only comes to clean, it's Igrot Moshe, יורה דעה. Even if she only comes to clean, and it's not her job to cook in the house. Sometimes you bring her to cook, so then the Ashkenazim turn on the fire. Different ways how to permit it, but even her task, she's only hired to clean the house and not to cook. We're afraid she might cook, and therefore she render the kelim asur. The Shevet HaKehati, on the other hand, he says lekula, if she only was hired to clean and not to cook, that we're not choshesh that much that she'll cook. But then you have question of the kelim. Not only the kelim, you have a question also of the wine. You leave a wine in the house. So then there's a isur of yain nesech. If the wine is eno mevushal. If it's eno mevushal, you left it in the house, it's open in the fridge, she's opening the fridge, she's cleaning. So then there's a question of yain nesech. Let's deal with all these things. No. אם אתה בבית אין בעיה. So this is why? Because it's a Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Kuf Yudchet, and this is how we start with the kulot over here. By the way, before I explain that, I want to explain another problem. Let's say she doesn't cook anything that's not kosher, and let's say she takes something that already was pre-cooked. So you don't have a problem of bishul akum. But the kitchen is a very, very sensitive place, and when you deal with a kitchen, many different things could go wrong. Like, for example, let's say she took something that was a piece of meat that was cooked, so there's no isur of bishul akum, but she puts it into the pot and she spills a little bit of milk on top to give it a good taste, like she does in her own home. Or let's say she puts it in a milchik pot. or vice versa. So you have all kind of issues that could come up.
יש ספק ספיקה, במעשה. ספק היא עשתה את זה, ספק לא עשתה את זה. וגם סתם כלים אינם מיומן, זה רק זה.
אתה יכול לעשות 20 ספקות פה, אבל השולחן ערוך אומר לא להניח את הקדרות אצל השפחות, ורמוישה וכל הפוסקים צועקים לא לעשות את זה, אז כל הספקות האלה הן טובות מאוד, אבל הן לא להלכה. אז what is להלכה? How can you permit?
What they were talking about is not necessarily a shifcha, that the situations that we have today. If you have a live-in and she's used to eat, and it's part of her job sometimes to make food, and she depends on your food. She's a live-in. That's one thing. But if she's not a live-in, if she's just a cleaning person that comes 2, 3, 4 times a week,
So Moshe says,
she has no shaykhus to cleaning. She never.
כבוד הרב, I told you זה מחלוקת רב משה and the שבט הקהתי. I'm just delivering opinions.
No, let's go a little further to.
אוקיי, אבל ככה הוא מדבר, כן, אני מבין, ויש את אחרוני האחרונים, הרב כרמי, שחולק ואומר שאין בעיה, הבנתי, מוסכם, אני רק אומר לכם דעות. אני רק אומר דעות, וכל אחד ייקח את זה לאן שירצה. אומר השולחן ערוך בסימן קי"ח סעיף י', המניח עובד כוכבים בביתו, person that lives the goya in his house, ובו דברים שאם הוחלפו יש בהם אפילו איסור דאורייתא, תורה, אם הוא יוצא ונכנס, which means even in the worst scenario of איסור תורה, if you come in and out, או אפילו שעה זמן רב ולא הודיעו שדעתו לשהות, מותר, ולא חשינן שם החליף. which means like this. כן, זה גם נכון. In other words like this. If you come into the house once in a while, the grass says every 18 minutes, at least every 18 minutes, so then there's mirtat. She's scared to change. Obviously, the Shulchan Aruch told us in Ilchot Chalav, Akum, that this din is only if you notified her. The Shach also brings this down in Kuf Kafchet, that it's only if you notified her that she's not allowed to do that. If she doesn't know at all that she's not permitted to deal with it, so she doesn't. There's no mirtat. She just doesn't know. But you told her, don't touch the food, don't cook, don't change, don't open the fridge where the wine is, don't open the fridge, don't. You informed her what she's not allowed to do. So then, if you come in and out, she's afraid that she might get caught, and therefore she won't do it. Now, you're saying correct that today we are more scared that she's going to leave than her leaving. But the truth is that there's certain fear. There's always such a thing. There's a fear from the boss. It's a natural fear that a person has when he has a boss. You're right. The boss has a certain fear that the employee might leave, but it's a different type of fear. It's not a fear from the employee. It's a fear that he might escape. But the employee is afraid. He has fear. There's certain fear from the boss. That's the way it works. Why? Because he's the one paying for him. He's the one feeding him. You're eating from his hands. So there is a psychological fear. Just like, for instance, there is such a fear in Ilchot Yichud that a wife knows that if her husband is in town, so then she's allowed to be mityached in the house with somebody else. It's ba'ala ba'ir. Why? Because she has the fear. Women have fear. They don't have fear from the husband, but it's a certain psychological fear that helps in Ilchot Yichud. It helps also here as well. So we're saying that there's two scenarios here that will be permitted. Either that you come in every once in a while, it's called nichnas v'yotze, or if you have to leave for a longer time, let's say you have to go to daven mincha. So she knows if you tell her I'm going to daven mincha, she has now half hour. If it depends. If it's Rabbi Karmi, she has now 3 hours. But normally, half hour. You go, you come back, and so she has a lot of time to do whatever she wants. So what's the remedy? אפילו שעה זמן רב ולא הודיע שדעתו לשהות, מותר. You tell her, I'll be right back. תכף אשוב. I'll be right back. You don't need to mention how long is right back. So in such a scenario, she still has the fear that you might come back any moment. This is also true, and it's only true if you're able to come in as a surprise. But if, let's say, the door is locked and she has the keys, and you have to knock on the door, the Shulchan Aruch says, "V'hu shelo sagar abayit alav." Then there's no fear because you're relying on her to open the door. She can meanwhile do clean up after herself, right? So then there's another scenario, for instance, if you're sleeping in a place in the house that will take time until you get there and she'll notice. Therefore, there's no fear in such places. So there's different scenarios that it would be mutar and it would be asur. But and this is a heter lechatchila. The Kaf HaChaim brings from many different poskim that it's a heter lechatchila of yotzeh v'nichnas. There's also another thing that the Shulchan Aruch says over here that's very important. All this I wrote also in my sefer. It says over here, "Lefi shu mityare bechol sha'a lemor ata yavo v'yir'eni." And this is only what? V'im eno nehene b'chalipin mutar b'chol inyan. Delo chashin anshem yachlif lachshilo kevan she'en lo hanaa b'davar. What are we talking about? When we're talking about food of basar shenitale min ha'ayin, meat that was not seen by you, and she had the time to exchange it with her meat, what are we talking about? We're talking about the case that the meat that she has is not as good as the meat that you have. So then we're afraid that it was changed. But if the meat that she's changing is the same quality, so then there's no benefit to change. She's not going to do it. The Tur brings down that we're not afraid that she'll do it to be machshil de Israel, to cause you to sin. That we're not afraid. We're not afraid that the goy will do something in order to cause you to sin. The only fear that we have, the only chashash that we have, is the chashash that she might change it in order to benefit. The Minchat Asher, Rav Asher Weiss writes in Chelek Bet, Minchat Asher, that we don't have to be choshesh for that today, because Mechatei said that her meat is worse than your meat. Why would she go and change? Why do you think it would be worse? It's a very far chashash to think that. These things shed light on many different stories that don't make sense at all. For instance, there's a very, very famous story, whether it's true or not, but the story is very famous, that goes like this. There was a person by an airplane, and he brought a hamburger sandwich, and he opened it, and then he saw that he needs to wash his hands, because his wife packed it with bread, not a mezonot bread like they have today all over, but she managed to find him hamotzi bread, if they still exist. Back then, they still existed. So he went to wash his hands in the bathroom by the airplane, and or whatever, the sink by the stewards. And when he comes back, he wants to make a hamotzi, and then he remembers basar shenitale min ha'ayin. Well, Latif, what am I going to do now? What a problem! Because the person that was sitting near him was a goy, so he didn't eat it. So the guy asked him, "Why not eating? Eat." So he said, "No, we have a halacha that basar shenitale min ha'ayin." So the guy told him, "Wow, so I can't believe this. I really exchanged that meat, that hamburger, and I took yours. It looks so much more delicious, and I put mine." That is the story. But Lemaise, this story, whether it's true or not, is not according to halacha, because according to halacha, you have the din of yotzeh v'nichnas. A person is not allowed. It doesn't have to be an employee. You're not allowed. You still have yotzeh v'nichnas with a stranger taking your things. And secondly,
You see him all the way going to
and
the
you could
bathroom.
see this halacha also permits you, for instance, to send a worker. That's also very common, that a worker delivers food. Extremely common. We get these questions all the time. And the food, there was a delivery, Uber Eats or whatever it is. He brings the food, and long and behold, the food comes without the seal, not sealed. And right away you get the call. I got to deliver it. Most questions on the introduction, you know already what's the answer. Just from being polite, you wait for them to ask the question. But you're in. I got to deliver it. It's permitted. All kind of things like that. Yeah. So whatever it is over here, in such a case that you got to deliver and wasn't sealed, there's few ways how to permit it. One way is the fact that since he's driving in places that have people around, he's not going to go and change it because he's afraid to be caught and seen. This is halacha that's brought down in the poskim. I wrote all the poskim. The Uber, the delivery person is afraid because he's going to lose his job. Yeah, Uber can lose his job. Yes.
I spoke to Pesach.
Okay, Rabbi. I'm telling you what the poskim say. Again, I'm not sharing you my opinion. My opinion is not important right now. So open my Sefer Shafi Atif, and you'll see over there I brought many poskim. Whatever it is, that's one.
So you can call the store, ask them.
One heter. Second heter, we said over here. Second heter over here is that it's lo ne'ene b'chalifin. In other words, you send with him a sushi, right? You bought a sushi. Sushi is fish. You're not allowed to have fish that is not kosher. And besides, sushi has a lot of other issues besides that. But let's just take the fish for now. And he brings it to you and it wasn't sealed. So what's the chance that he went to a Chinese store, he ate this sushi and he bought exactly the same sushi and he put it for you and that's what he delivered? Because it has to be, if he could have bought, akol yachol liot. The question is, are we choshesh? Are we choshesh for that very far-fetched scenario that he decided he's hungry and he's not going to go to the Chinese store to buy it for himself, but rather eat yours and buy you a Chinese from the Chinese store and give you the food from the Chinese store. So the Gemara says, the Halacha says over here, אם אינו נהנה בחליפין, מותר בכל עניין דלא חשינן שמא החליף להכשילו, כיוון שאין לו הנאה בדבר.
If he got ruined and he has to replace it, they go to the store.
There's a lot of ifs.
Goes to the Chinese store.
Yes, you could have a lot of ifs. Just like you had this fake faker, you can have a lot. יכול להיות, הכל.
של אכילה.
הכל יכול להיות, השאלה אם חוששים לחששות רחוקות.
I'm saying, if the Tanya is שאין לו הנאה, יש לו פה הנאה. יש לו פה הנאה. Because in case he got, in the case he's not there on Shabbat, he got ruined, he has to replace it. Much cheaper to replace it with non-kosher. So
Yeah.
יש פה הנאה.
השאלה, אז אני שומע את השאלה, והתשובה, we're not afraid for far-fetched scenarios. They could happen, we're not afraid. We don't have to be choshesh for far-fetched scenarios of something that happened like this, like that. We're not afraid of that. When we're talking about basar shenitale min hayin, although basar shenitale min hayin is something that's very, very far-fetched, what are we saying? We're saying that mikar hadin, it's not the goy changing, it's the raven or the animal. You left the meat in outside, and the raven came in, and he took your meat, and he brought a different piece of meat. You're right, much more. But la halacha, this is how they arrange. This is how they establish the halacha. But after that, you don't bring out very, very far-fetched scenarios. Okay, so this is another kula over here that we can apply. Now we can apply over here what the rabbi said. That is a chidush already, and that is the new system of having surveillance cameras. When you have surveillance cameras, that solves a lot of problems. You can put in the kitchen a surveillance camera, and then you have no problem at all. Why not? Because she's always watched. So then definitely she has the mirtat. Completely all the time she has the mirtat. You have no problem whatsoever. All you need to do it is in the kitchen. When we're dealing with a camera, by the way, the poskim allowed the camera in this scenario, but when we're dealing in a different question, when you have cleaning lady, which is also extremely common, whenever you get a call, Rabbi, I have a cleaning lady in the house. My wife is. You already know what the question is. What's the continuation of the question? My wife has to go to work, and I want to stay home. Can I stay home with her? There's a question of yichud. The father, the son, can they stay with the cleaning lady home? So if we're dealing with a camera, surveillance camera, over here it's a little bit more problematic. When the cameras started coming out, having them in the house, many of the poskim didn't like it. Rav Eliashiv, Rav Chaim Kanievsky, many poskim were opposed to it. But now it became more easy to permit because it's part of life, and therefore Nissim Karelis, for instance, also writes to permit it. but with some conditions. It has to be unlike the other case of Basar, of dealing with the kitchen. In the kitchen, all you have to do is have the camera in the kitchen. But over here, since Avera, the sin could be done any place in the house, so then the poskim say that you need to have cameras around the house, which means it needs to cover the house. It's a good question. It's a good question. So, you're right. If a person goes into the bathroom with the cleaning lady, you can see it from outside, it's problematic. Not only that you have to have this camera, since the mirtat now is not for the cleaning lady, it's for you. So you need to have somebody that could watch it. In other words, if you're the only one that has access to the camera, there's no mirtat at all, because nobody could see it. So it needs to be such that your wife can see it all the time. She doesn't have to see it at real time. She could see it afterwards. A recording, that's good enough, because you'll be caught. And when a person could be caught, that's the Heter in Halacha, that we're not afraid that he would go ahead with the sin. So that is something that's important to remember. Although in Yichud there are other leniencies as well. For instance, leaving the door unlocked. If you leave it open, that's definitely much easier. Although some don't like it because normally you don't walk into somebody's house even if you left the door a little bit open. But lemaise, the people inside are not gonna sin knowing that the door is open, even though the likelihood of somebody coming in is very far, but it's enough to take away the feeling that a person would want to sin in a case, very far case, that he'll be caught. What about if the door is unlocked but it's closed? And many times you have to close it. It's cold outside, it's hot outside, you have the air conditioner working, whatever it is. So then the Rashba, it's brought down in the Sharet Tshuva. The Rashba brings down, and also the Raavad, that it's permitted. That's considered already something that's not Makom Ichud. Rabbi Akiva Eiger and the Bet Meir learned the Rashba and Raavad differently. They say that no, they didn't permit, because you can learn the words that they're saying differently, and they say no, that it's the Rashba was oser if the house is door is closed but not locked. So you have over here machloket of how to understand it. Whatever it is, you have over here other leniencies as well. For example, if your wife can walk into the house any given time, she went, but she can come in any given time. You don't know. She said, I'm going to work. But many times she goes to work. She forgets something in the middle of the day, she pops in. Or your child can come in, or your parents can come in, or your neighbor could come in. If somebody could come into the house, the place becomes eno makom ichud. This is the tshuva of Dovev Mesharim, the Gaon Mitashbin, in Chelek Aleph Siman Hey. He brings down that in order for a person to be over Isur Ichud, it has to be makom ichud, which means it has to be a place that people stay over there and could do the Avera. If it's not a Makom Ichud, you don't have a problem. So if a person could walk in any given time, it's not a Makom Ichud. Your wife can come in any given time, there's no Makom Ichud. By the way, we spoke about Ba'ala Ba'ir, when a woman stays home and somebody at work comes in, so then there's a fear called Ba'ala Ba'ir, according to Shulchan Aruch at least. So therefore, the worker is allowed to be in the house while the wife is there, because the husband is in the city. Chazon Ish, I think it's a Chazon Ish holds that there's also the same case with Ishto Ba'ir, which means that that's already a machloket, whether the husband is at home and the wife is in the city. She's working. Today, that's many times the case, that the wife works. The wife works, she goes to work, and the husband many times stays with the kids afterwards. The kids come at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, he stays, she's finishing her work. She's a nurse, she's a doctor, she's an architect, whatever it is. So then there's a din of Ishto Ba'ir. By the way, even in the case of Ba'ala Ba'ir, not every time that things are permitted. For instance, the Chayei Adam says that if the wife had permission from the husband, he knows that there's a worker coming to the house, so then there's no fear. Or let's say the wife goes to a certain house and the husband knows, so there's no fear, because she knows he told her to go there. It's with his permission. So then she's not afraid in that scenario because she's okay to be there. He learns that he learns that the fear is not from the avera, it's to be there by themselves, which leads to the avera. Okay, whatever it is, we have over here few scenarios that you could stay. By the way, with that, the poskim say that if a person needs to live, the wife needs to live, and this is very common with babysitting. You need to put a babysitter at home. You need to have a girl watching your boy, and he's the age already of yichud. So there's yichud over here. How is that possible? The remedy to that is to ask one of the neighbors, one of the neighbors the keys to the house, and ask him to come in once in a while in surprise visits. So when he comes in surprise visits, it's not makom yichud. That would help also here, if you can have a person come in, one of the neighbors, whatever it is. So if you leave the door unlocked, a person could just come in once in a while. So he's doing you a favor. You're telling him, do me a favor, come in once in a while, just don't knock on the door and open the door. You can also find another solution to that, and that is sitting by the window. If you have a window facing the street or facing a neighbor window, so sit there where they can see you. It's not that area is not a makom yichud. You could sit there without any problem. Let the lady clean, and you're sitting over there and you're learning. You don't have to leave the house. But again, we said very good solution is leaving cameras around the house. Let's just speak very quickly about wine. Yes.
Going back to cameras on Shabbat. Some of these cameras, I don't know if you know that technology. They turn on, turn off. They have to.
Yes.
Send
So in Shabbat we spoke about this. You don't need to know about technology. You just have to have a camera. If you have a camera, you know how these things work. But yeah, we spoke about this. This is Nogea Elchot Shabbat, and we spoke about this, and we can speak about this again. But let's speak about wine. When we're dealing with leaving the wine in your house with the cleaning lady, we said that could be problematic because if it's yain she'eno mevushal, we're dealing with yain nesech, that we're afraid that chibat yain nesech, they love so much to be menasech. This is how the Rashi brings down in the two over here in the Kuf Yudchet, that they might shake it for avodah zara. So can you leave the wine in there? And the answer is no. You should not leave your wine unless it is either if it's not opened yet, which means it's still sealed. So that's called chotam betoch chotam, which means it's one chotam like this is sufficient because it's not impossible to open without seeing that it was open. Same thing if you had the cork. If it's such a cork that you can't put back, that's called chotam betoch chotam, which means there's two chotamot over here, two seals. Or one that is considered like two, which is good. But in case that you left the house and you forgot about the wine that's left over from Shabbat, you had a very expensive wine, black label, and you left the house, you come back after 2 hours, and then, wow, how did I forget? So is the wine asur? Rav Elyashiv says a beautiful chidush. He says that in order for the goy to be osir the wine, we explained before, he needs to shake it, but he needs to shake it while the wine is open, not while the cup is there, because if the cup is still on the bottle, there's no isur yain nesech. It has to be opened. So Rav Elyashiv says that we're not afraid that they're going to do two things. Also, go to the fridge and open it, right? Open the bottle. That's one thing. And then, secondly, shake it. That much the halacha doesn't have that chashash, and therefore, because of that, Rav Elyashiv says that the wine would be permitted. By the way, this is not the only leniencies. There's other leniencies as well. For instance, every wine, even if it's eno mevushal, if it's uncooked, it goes to pasteurizing, and there are many poskim that hold that pasteurizing is a form of cooking and it's permitted. Chacham Ovadia brings a list of poskim, Rav Shlomo Zalman, there's a list of poskim that, for different reasons, Rav Elyashiv, Rav Shlomo Zalman, Rav Moshe, they all say different reasons. When it's pasteurized, whether you would consider it as cooked. Rav Ovadia seems to be lenient with such things. So you have over here another leniency to go along with that.
It's a kula sheva b'chumrah, because once it's pasteurized, they're not so careful about all the guards that they have with yain and mushal. They consider it to be
So lechatchila, you definitely shouldn't leave the wine with it. Go ahead.
the ones who make the wine.
So making the wine, by the way, today the Rav Eliyahu Palk Zatzal brings down, and he's not the only one, that be'etzem we could have been matir any wine today. Why? Because all the industry of wine is automatic. The goy doesn't do anything. It used to be that the goy used to go into the gut, into the wine place. You put all the olives there and you step on it with your feet. That's called the gut in Lashon HaKodesh. And then they would take out the wine and they would bottle it. They put it in chaviot, in jars, and so on and so forth. So constantly he would deal with it. He would have to open, make sure that it all the shmarim over there are soaked and they're not floating and so on. There's a lot of work that he would do with it. That would cause it to become yain nesech, because it could be meshachshech any time. But today everything is done without a human's hand. Everything is machinery in most places. So therefore, it could be that there's no isur altogether. Lemaisa we machmir, but there is a way to find another leniency. There's few leniencies like that. So lemaisa, using the leniency of this Rav Eliashiv together with all the other leniencies we mentioned, definitely you have room to be mekel b'diavad that you left it there. Of course, lechatchila, as I said, one should either lock it in a place and take away the key, or seal it in a way that if she opens it, you'll see that the seal was broken, or take it with you, put it in a car, and lock the car. Such scenarios would take care of all the problems we spoke. Chazak uvaruch.